Welcome to Mac and Bleu, the cutting-edge podcast for the nation's builders, merging the realms of construction with exciting advancements in technology. Join us on a thrilling journey where we delve into the dynamic world of blockchain, AI, the metaverse, virtual and augmented reality, and their transformative impact on the industry. Our engaging discussions span a wide spectrum, covering not only construction, economic development, supply chain, and market segments, but also exploring the vibrant tapestry of diversity within the construction landscape. We shed light on the intersection of local politics and its profound influence on the construction sector, while championing the remarkable contributions of women and minorities in construction. For all things Mac and Bleu, head to www.macandbleu.com, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky. Now let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Mac and Bleu. I'm your host, JJ Levinsky, CEO and co-founder of Blue Wave. Today, long time overdue, I'm lucky enough to have Brandon Bell on. Brandon is the CEO, president, founder, heir apparent, all that to Next Level Steel. And for most of you, you probably recognize the name Bell. And yes, he was part of Bell Steel and yep. Probably grew up in the industry. So we'll get into a little bit of that. But thanks for coming on today, Brandon.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate that.
Well, the hell, let's just start. The Next Level Steel's we're going to get into all the cool shit that is why I got you on. But go back, because your name is synonymous with steel in the Valley.
Right.
Give the audience just kind of, a lot of them know, but a lot of them probably have heard all this stuff. Just go back to when you were a kid and all that kind of stuff growing up, and then just kind of where's the metamorphosis that is. Get to where Next Level Steel starts, and then I'll start poking you with all sorts of stuff.
That's easy to do. I've explained it and answered it
a million times.
Yeah, a million times. So yeah, pretty easy. So I was born and raised in Yuma.
Right.
I didn't have much of a relationship with my dad at the time. He lived here. So as soon as I graduated high school, turned 18, and moved to Phoenix all in the same week. So I got to drive up here with my bags in the back of my truck and meet my dad and start the new chapter of life. And he had a pole fence business called United Ornamental Iron. Some people know it as UOI.
Oh yeah.
And it was a great pole fence business, and opened my mind to that. Hey, anybody could own a job or own a building or a job or a business. Sorry.
Right. Now, was it just you, or were there other family members involved?
Just me.
Okay.
Just me. My dad was day to day working on it, and I got to experience that. Growing up with a single mom, you don't really realize that anybody could own a business and be an entrepreneur, and that he opened my eyes to that and taught me a lot. And I just fell in love with the business and had fun getting to know the ins and outs, whether it's the office or the shop. And I wanted to be a welder and work out in the shop. And my dad's like, no, I know that. You need to work in the office. I don't know that. So it worked out good. And I had fun in the purchasing. But then realized, and I've said this in a few interviews, the structural steel guys, they were driving nicer trucks and had bigger shops and bigger toys. And I brought that up to him and said, hey, we should try that. And he's like, man, I've built this business from, the ground up with my bare hands. I don't think I have the energy or time to do that. But if you wanted to, you have my support. And he gave me full support. And we slowly, I remember us buying our first forklift and hiring all the project managers that no other steel guys wanted to hire. And so I learned a lot of what not to do and how to work with general contractors and put fires out. And some of the guys in our shop worked at structural steel shops before, and so I'd pick their brain on what type of equipment and how do we fabricate structural steel? How do we estimate it? And
right.
LGE was a big helper in that years ago. We did like their ornamental stuff, and their head estimator at the time, his name was Fred Moll. He would help me estimate structural steel jobs, smaller ones, not for real, but just kind of like I'd estimate and say, hey, there's the number I came up with. Am I high? Am I low? Where would I be? And kind of fine tune my estimating. So I taught myself how to estimate structural steel. So just those a couple years of just learning and starting with like a strip mall that was like a couple of columns and a couple of beams or a couple of lintels, and slowly going from there. And fast forward 15 years, we were one of the largest structural steel fabricators in the Valley, and it was. Through my 20s growing it, I had all the balls and energy in the world to do that, and my dad's support to let me do that too. So it was
fun trajectory.
It was not expected.
Yeah.
Just kind of going day to day but having fun growing a business.
So then what, give the audience a year perspective of when and how then did it start to either unwind or do whatever there was before the next chapter?
Just the family dynamic changed a little bit, and I went from having fun to not having so much fun, and it took a couple years. There was a lot of options on the table, whether to buy it or walk away, and I just decided to walk away, and it was better for everybody for me to do that. And I had a non-compete period that I had fun with. I was doing business development for Balfour Beatty Construction, trying to learn what a general contractor does, which is great because as a subcontractor, we always assume, or at least me, I can't talk for all subcontractors, but subcontractors assume general contractors have it easy. Mm-hmm. All you guys do is take our bid, mark it up, and yell at us that we're not doing it fast enough or doing it wrong.
Or cheap enough, right?
Yeah, exactly. And going in and seeing how they do things, it's like, oh my gosh, you guys you're in a tough spot.
Plus you went to a national company instead of just a regional, so you get to see the overarching dynamic of that too.
Yeah, the pressures of all that, and so I learned a lot, and that was kind of for fun. And then I spent some time with the family, and I honestly didn't think I was going to get back in the structural steel business.
Really?
It was. I put everything out on the line for Bell Steel. I just all my blood, sweat, and tears were into that, and I just didn't think I had it in me again. And I thought I could, I felt I could do whatever, but the shop that I have now was owned by a guy named Kerry Van Dalen, and it's called VDS West. And he was all about me buying it from him.
Now, did you know them before?
I did, yeah. Okay. Yeah, Bell Steel did some fabrication, or they did some fabrication for Bell Steel.
Yeah.
Smaller shop, and I just didn't think I had it in me to buy a steel company and a facility. And he called me a few times, and I remember telling my wife, like, hey, I'm going to go talk to this guy. Nothing's going to have a...
By the way, I know Katie, so she was probably beating you over your head.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Exactly. So, yes, you
Brandon, you're going to see a therapist tomorrow.
Exactly. So I say, I'll be home in an hour. Went and talked to him, loved the shop, forgot how nice of a shop it was. It's a nice small shop, because I said if I ever did get it, I'm going to stay small. Mm-hmm. Don't want to get big. I don't want to build another big company.
How's that going for you?
Yeah, we'll it's
all right. We'll get later in the podcast on that one.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody laughed at me when I said that for obvious reasons. But I came home 3 hours later and told her we're buying a steel shop, and it just worked out perfectly.
She didn't divorce you then?
No, she was all about it. I think she knew, because of just the smell. I think she saw me come home with that energy and that.
You were probably euphoric.
Oh, I was, and just walking into the shop and smelling that steel smell and seeing the guys. And actually, he had 8 employees. I think 6 of them have worked it for me at one point.
Yeah.
And so I knew the people. Yeah. So, and then it just went really fast.
And so from a time frame, when was the closing, or when did you technically start Next Level Steel?
Well, I had Next Level Steel before I bought that facility.
Okay. When did those two marry then?
Okay. It was August 31st of 2020.
2020. Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. So just 3 years ago, basically.
Yeah. We just had our 3-year anniversary.
So.
Yeah.
And then, all right, before we get into the really sexy stuff then, okay, so let's say the first year of 2020, what did you do in that, call it the first 4 to 6 months? Like, how did you either change, transform, reignite yourself, and what happened? Like, because I think the audience would love to know. It's like, how does a guy go from here, come over here, and then what do you do? Like, what does it look like?
I didn't know. I was in there. I was back to when I was starting Bell Steel Structure.
Yeah, sweeping the floor.
I was estimating everything. I had one employee who was amazing that worked for me at Bell Steel. She left, during that time frame. But just her and I were in the office, and I was doing it all. And like I said, my mantra was, I'm keeping it small. We had 8 employees. We're keeping it small. I went in with some contracts. Literally the day I announced I'm buying that facility, I had customers come out of everywhere and say, I have this job, take this job. And I'd be like, well, I don't have time to bid it. Like, just bid it later. It's yours. You're gonna have it. So a lot of negotiated work.
How did that feel?
It felt amazing because I was stressed.
You built trust, right?
Yeah. Well, it felt amazing with the trust, but also I was super stressed buying a new business.
Yeah. Like,
again, Katie's like, what are we doing? I was selling a lot of my assets to be able to buy this facility. and I didn't know what the future was going to look like.
But those phone calls make you feel like, oh, cash flow is going to be good, hopefully.
Yes. And then I was like, okay, how am I going to bond this? Well, my bonding company came out and said, whatever you need, we know you, we know how you run a business. And then my banker was very, very open to the loan to buy the business and lines of credit. And then even vendors, which were amazing. I wasn't expecting this. I had still vendors who,
like 60, 90, 120.
Well, they're that, and then the credit limit was like, I had one job my first month. I had to buy almost $1 million worth of steel.
Right.
A company that's in business for 1 month getting $1 million line of steel, a line of credit on one vendor was unheard of. And the manager said, hey, even his bosses are like, what are you doing? Who is this? And he's like, it's Brandon Bell. And they're like, yeah, but still, like, do we know? He's like, and he put his name on the line, and I paid him early, actually. So I built that, confidence and credit in there, and just everything I needed, I was able to get. Payment terms too. There was some GCs. I was like, hey, that $1 million, I was able to pay early because they paid me net 20 on that one.
Nice.
Because they knew where I was as a new company. So like everybody was bent over backwards to help me and my family out with this new business.
But you had obviously built that goodwill and trust from prior years.
Yeah. So. I mean, that's when I said I was going to keep it small, that was the thing that really I didn't factor in. That I kept on thinking I'm starting a business from scratch and grinding it out, because I did that before and I knew what it took. Mm-hmm. But when you have that reputation and people know you, it makes it a lot easier. And I did not think about it that way.
All right, so that was great, by the way. I love this story. You've been well publicized in town, which is cool. You should be proud of yourself and for what you've done, not only before, but how you transformed that into next level steel. So now let's go in, here it is, 2021, and the boom that we're experiencing. Yeah. And no one can get bar joists and deck.
Right.
And little old Brandon, is out there with Einstein thinking in the parking lot.
Yep.
And how in the hell did you come up with castellated steel?
So I knew about it from years ago. Okay. Jack Kohler at PK was going to try. We were trying to figure out how to do castellated parking garages for a few parking garages that we were adding on to.
Okay.
And so I educated myself then.
Okay.
Then forgot about it. And then I have just...
No, do you remember kind of roughly?
I would say this would be like 16, 17-ish, or 14, 15-ish.
Now, educate me, because of course I know about it in the last few years, but prior to that I had heard the name, but really hadn't seen much of the detailing.
Yeah. And
were you guys, was it very, what's the word I'm looking for? Was it very nascent at the time, or were there actually companies out kind of perfecting it already back then, 7 years ago, 6 years ago?
Well, there's companies perfecting it years before that.
But just not in the Phoenix market.
Correct, yeah.
Okay,
everything is precast and concrete. If you go back to the Midwest or Northeast, there's a lot of castellated parking garages. Yep. I had somebody send me a picture of a parking garage in Albuquerque that's castellated recently. So they're just here and there. Depends on if castellated they were a pretty big deal. They were called the garage beam back in the day, because there's such an efficient way to build a parking garage.
Your little Legos.
Yeah, I know. You see these? Yeah. This is going to be great. You'll see why later on, because I have to educate a lot of people on what a castellated beam is. So I take my little 3D printed Legos.
Do you want to, because it's on video, do you want to take a time and do that now or not?
I'll do it like in the...
Keep going then.
Yeah. What started with, I had a bunch of developer friends.
Okay.
That knew I had a new business, and they were trying to, send work my way, which was great, but they were having this issue with the joist, and they're like, "Hey, can you fabricate our joist?" And I'm like, I really can't efficiently, because you're talking thousands of them for your building. I'm going to have to charge you way too much for me. And then for all the setup fee, the jigs, the equipment, just the primum, you have to dip them in primer. Like it's a really big undertaking. And I knew spending millions of dollars on that, getting it up and running, by then joist lead times and pricing would be back down. It's not worth the investment.
You would have had a huge CapEx go right down the drain.
Exactly. Yep. So I kept on saying, I want to help you, but I just don't know how. Mm-hmm. And Jack and I were having cigar and scotch at Fox's, and I'm like, man, I got to figure out this joist issue. He's like, I know, we'll figure out the joist. We could do this or that. And then he just stopped, and he looks, what about a castellated beam?
He's the one that said it.
Yeah. And I go, I wish I could take credit, but I have to give it to him.
I won't give Jack the credit.
Yeah.
Then.
But I'm like, you're right. What would that look like? What's the size? What for the spans? Like, And literally on a napkin, he's writing stuff down and figuring out. He's like, I'll get back to you. Sure enough, he gave me beam sizes and what that would look like. And then I went back and reverse engineered it. Okay, I have equipment to make a castellated beam. What would it cost, like man-hour wise and material, and kind of did all that. Looked at a building with one of my developer buddies. He had a 400,000 square foot building, figured out how many they'd be. And I kind of said, okay, here's how much it'd cost for a castellated roof. How does that work compared to joist? They're like, you're less. And I go, really? And I go, well, how fast can I get them? I said, you could get them in 4 to 5 months. He's like, right now they're 14 months out.
Right.
He's like, done within weeks.
Here.
Yeah, within weeks I had a contract, and Jack was switching it over as it happened to be a PK job as well. And so then it started with this is going to be a cool Band-Aid for the industry, because I figured joists were going to come back down. I'm not going to, be competitive later on, because I knew where joist pricing should and where it used to be, and my pricing wasn't there yet. So I just thought it'd be a Band-Aid, which I was fine with. Get a few 100,000 square feet or a couple million square feet of castellated beams, and then go off to the structural steel again. It's no problem.
Pivot and iterate like you always do, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But once we started going, there's all these other benefits that started to pop up. Like, hey, we're shallower than a joist. Well, actually, let me back up. I'll talk about how a castellated beam is made. Okay. So everybody assumes a castellated beam, when they see the picture, it looks like this, right? They assume we cut those shapes out of the beam.
Yeah, like you take the negative out.
Right. That's not the case at all.
Right.
It is, we goes through a beam line. It gets plasma cut like this.
Yep.
Comes out like that. We split it apart, and then we weld it back together, and it creates that. By doing that, your web gets deeper web, stronger beam, without adding extra weight, without adding extra cost. So we span those 50-foot, 60-foot, or 70-foot speed-based sections without added cost. And now you have your openings for your fire sprinklers and all that.
Right.
So when you have thousands of these for a building, you got to be pretty efficient to stay competitive. So as we started to do a few of these jobs, we were getting more efficient. And like, I have some proprietary jigging, proprietary software that helps design them and cut them out and program them for my machines and all that. And also we've found ways to make erection go faster out there with a lot of bolted connections. We have a different
versus
set.
welding.
Yeah. Yep. So there's no welding now. There used to be.
And the certs are easier. The special inspections are easier.
All of that's easier. Yeah. So that's where, that's how we got into it. That's what it is. We started fabricating these, started erect them, realizing people are like, these things are shallower than a joist. So a standard joist that spans 50 foot is anywhere between 32 inches to 36 inches deep.
Agreed.
60 foot, 36 inches deep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 26 inches deep for a 60 foot span.
So and for all the warehousing and clear,
Yeah. So, and then on 50 foot, I'm 22 inches. So, and my girders are 30 inches deep. A standard joist girder is 48 inches. So there's 18 inches clear right there. So these owners are like, wow, we have a higher clear span in there, or I don't need another foot or so, but we're going to take down the parapet wall all the way around that precast building and save the concrete cost and the rebar cost. The
second one is what, as a GC, the second one is what I've been hearing is the biggest benefit.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, and we're like, wow, that's great. And then we go in there and we were told, hey, they're stronger. Okay, that's great, But again, this is happening so fast, I'm not able to absorb it all. But then our very first job, the client came and said, hey, we have a prospective tenant. They want to add air conditioners on this or solar. What do we have to do to your castellated beams to support that? Talking to the engineer, realizing they're like, you don't need to do anything. It's over-engineered. I'm like, oh, so I dived into that. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, these are stronger. So now when you go back to them saying you don't need to do anything, the GC and the developer are like, this is amazing. So now I'm able to show that to everybody. So now we're shallower, we're stronger, no deferred submittal anymore because now it's all engineered by the engineer of record.
Right.
They look better. If you look at pictures, like they look a lot better, a lot cleaner, and we're more nimble and flexible for any design changes or changes in the future. And we're faster than joist for the most part. So all those benefits, we realized, we're onto something. So now it was the race to be competitive with joist because I knew lead times and I knew pricing because I knew joists were 3 times the cost.
Yeah, they were going to come back eventually. Yeah, well, maybe not to original, but something
exactly
less than what the prime was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were on a race to see how efficient we could get and how we could spread the word to everybody that these are a better system and they don't cost more. Because we would hear when we were getting out there, a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I see that, but they're too expensive. And I've talked to some GCs or some estimators saying, really, who told you they're more expensive? Well, we talked to so-and-so who talked to so-and-so who talked to so-and-so. I'm like, well, let me give you a number. And once I give them a number, they're like, oh my gosh, you need to come in and talk to our pre-con team. I thought it was more than it was going to be. So, and then we've heard from other developers saying, well, am I going to lease it as easy or sell it as easy? So we have to go to the brokers. So there's 5 people. We're talking to general contractors, architects, engineers, and then the developers and the brokers. So we're selling this. So we were just doing lunch and learns and happy hours and breakfast cons. Yes. Like I said, I was doing a lunch and learn before this podcast, but I love it. And
I hope all you people out there learn something.
Yes.
And had a free lunch.
Yes. But once people realize that this isn't a more expensive system, but it is a better system, it's disrupting the industry. Yeah. And it's been fun. We'll have, probably close to 7 million square feet done by the end of this year.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from. And we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
So with that, okay, 1 million questions. By the way, kudos, congratulations. You and Jack can hopefully go back to Fox's, maybe get a little better cigar and a little better scotch this time. How does it impact what you've had to do from a human resources capacity? I mean, because this growth, everyone knows how to manage growth, right. But how have you, Brandon, sustained the growth or kept up with it? Everyone's going to say, like in other words, how does now take off the steel guy hat, put on your leadership hat and the Brandon Bell hat and go, oh crap, I my growth could be limitless. What am I going to do as next level growth or next level steel? Sorry, we had next level growth on it one time too. You know what I mean?
I hope this doesn't sound like arrogant or conceited, but I think being in the business as long as I have and had the reputation with past employees is actually fairly easy.
Okay.
And we're going to have about 160 employees, or we do have 160 employees.
So put that in perspective. In 3 years.
From 8 to 160.
Not bad.
Yeah. But it's been fairly easy, especially the first few months. I had people daily wanting to come work for me, which that was very humbling.
Instead of you having to call, they were calling you.
Yeah.
That's pretty humbling.
Super humbling, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so when we needed people, they're there. The last maybe 30 to 40 people was been a little bit more difficult, or manning a night shift is a little more difficult.
Yeah.
But and the management's been really easy. That's what I was worried about, finding great managers, whether it's project managers or operation managers or office managers. I have the best team in the state that is, or in the country, I feel, that has helped with this growth, because it's been fast and furious and it's been stressful, but my team has just taken it and ran with it better than I ever could. And so we've been really fortunate with that.
What about, speaking of labor and this growth, let's go to the erection and the field staff. Mm-hmm. Have you been doing it all in-house, or are you subbing it out?
No, we sub that out.
Okay.
Yeah, we sub that out. For the Castellated beam side, we have 4 different erectors that help us. But
you were intimate with them and knew them, and did again, back to the lunch and learns. You developed a relationship. It wasn't just here, throw them to the wolves type stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And what's their feedback been?
They love it. In fact, I get a preferred number for a castellated beam system over a joist system because it's easier. Joist is very fragile. Mm-hmm. You got to be very, you got to take care of
the way you're rigging it, yeah.
Yeah, and with a castellated beam system, they could erect them faster, and so I get a preferred number. There was one job, there was $100,000 delta to if it was going to go castellated beam for my erector alone.
Just on erection, 100,000.
Yeah.
You do the math on that one.
Right.
Okay, go back to the demand and the growth. And you can either decline. You don't have to talk about it, but I am curious. And I know you're a humble man, but are you being asked to go all across the country, and like, do you catch yourself going, oh my God, I wanted to, are we opening in now? Do I need to open 4 more branches? That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's happening fast. We have a pretty big job in Vegas that we are doing.
Okay.
And we're about to sell hopefully 2 buildings in Denver. We have some developers wanting to take us up to Salt Lake. So where there's a snow load, these do amazing as well. Yeah. So we're definitely focusing on that. And it went from when I was telling everybody I was staying small, and they'd laugh at me and say, you don't know how to stay small. And I said, no, honestly, I'm going to stay small. I don't want to deal with the stress of growing a business. I have flip-flopped and said, we are getting huge. Yeah. We're doing that. And now everybody understands. So we're definitely focusing a lot in Boise, Salt Lake, Denver, Reno, Vegas areas. Because we feel like everybody in Phoenix kind of knows us now. Yeah. And we're seeing more and more jobs coming out to bid already designed as Castellated. And that's another nice thing too, is switching from joist to Castellated is very easy. We can do it within 2 weeks. We could do a delegated submittal, so I could bring in an engineer and do that. Or we could work with the engineer of record. Let's say it's different than PK, which want to make it clear, everybody assumes it's just PK and I. No, we're TLCP, CTS, Schaefer,
many of them,
Kimley Horn, all those guys. Yeah,
the usual
understand
culprits.
It. But I'll help them with what we've learned, and we have a catalog actually with the load calcs and everything, and design connections that we like to use with the efficiencies we built in, and so they we could assist them if they want, and it's a really easy transition.
A lot of the audience, and by the way, thank you for the technical. Again, kudos to you, wonderful story. But a lot of this audience is, and we didn't do this on purpose, it's kind of just taken kind of an organic metamorphosis as far as the Mac and Bleu thing. This started as kind of a construction podcast, but it's almost turned into more like an exponential entrepreneur podcast. And no better fit than you sitting here talking about your successes. A lot of people want to know about those trials and tribulations of the leadership. Like we started going, you talked about how, I wouldn't say easy, but how rewarding it was for you to be able to grow the way you have. Apart from just your past experience, what are you willing to share as far as like your back of the house? Like what's made that successful? Like, are you using any kind of EOS model? Are you using, what have you done to hire out your C-suite to replace you because you can't be everywhere and everything?
Right.
Those kind of the tougher questions, Brandon.
Yeah, that's good because it's happened so fast, and I tried to hold it all in, and you could see that just did not. Yeah, but it's weird how things happen. Like it just all fell into place when it needed to fall in place. Like I have a CEO who's amazing, who was a friend of mine, but I never thought he'd want to come work for me. He had his own thing going on, and then one day I was kind of getting ready to blow up. I don't know what to do. I'm handling this HR stuff and this business stuff, and it's just so much. I can't do it all. He's like, well, why don't I come help you? I'm like, you would want to? And he's been amazing. Phil Clark, he's my COO. He's definitely helped take that from me, and he runs it like it's his own business. What's nice about everybody on my leadership team, they have worked for me or with me at some point in my career. So I knew them. I knew their personalities. I knew their strengths. They knew me because I'm
your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they know I'm all over the place. I'm bouncing all over the place and throw something at them and leave and come back. And so I moved pretty fast, and they knew me. They knew how to handle me or where my mind was. In fact, my controller, Karen, she was my first boss when I was 18 years old.
I love it.
I was adding up time cards, filing and answering the phone for her.
She's got so much dirt on you. It's unbelievable.
She has so much dirt. She knows me that she finishes my sentences. It is hilarious. Yeah. She knows me better than anybody, for sure.
So,
but as far as the EOS, so about a year ago, I reached out to a friend. He has a company called Culture to Cash, Matt Blanton. And I've known him for years. He's actually from Yuma as well. We used to go to the sand dunes together, and we just kind of knew the same people and all that stuff.
Thicker than thieves you are.
Yeah, right? But I reached out to him as a friend saying, hey, this company is growing faster than I could handle. I am going to need some help, and I need to set a foundation for this growth.
Right.
So I grow the correct way, the right way. And I didn't he just sold some of his businesses, and I knew he's getting in kind of like helping companies grow, or just with his culture of the cash company, and said, hey, is this something you could help me out with? And he's like, for sure. And so we kind of started that journey about a year ago.
Nice.
And it's been super transformative with my team, and just the way I think and the way I delegate, and focus on where I need to focus instead of in the weeds and where I'm not good at. And so he's helped out a lot, and it's still a work in progress because
everyone says, you talk to anyone, the average is about 1 year to really see the true effectiveness of it, depending on company size and maturity and things like that. But the average is about 1 year.
Yeah. And I could see that, but at the same time, we are growing and changing too. So I think that goalpost moves a little bit further out, because it just, I've got other things up my sleeve that'll be happening here in the next year.
What can you go back to kind of your own infrastructure then, as far as the, I know your location right on the I call it, McKellips and whatever there. Are you going to outgrow that, or have you outgrown it where you have to do other areas?
Great questions. I already have, and I have a new facility already up and running. So Mesa, McKellips, when I first bought that business, it was on 2.5 acres or so. Right. Outgrew that within a few months and bought 6 acres next door, which I thought, I was like
closer to the little dudes there?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Actually, they're between us. They're my neighbor on that side.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about subdividing that, because again, I was going to say small at the time, and there's no way I could use all 6 acres. Well, then a few months later, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need more land. But we're going to have to make this work. I'm trying to buy a neighbor, buy little dealers, but can't. He doesn't want to sell yet. Yeah. But then this Castellated beam thing came, and we're doing thousands of these beams, and it was just getting too. I at one point, I think I had like 300 or 400 truckloads of steel in that 6 acres, and it was just mountains of steel. So I found a facility on the west side by Goodyear Airport. Yeah. A buddy of mine, it's actually his land and building. So it's 28 acres, one building that's 100,000 square feet, and another building that's 50,000 square feet. So we signed a lease in that, and we started production here recently.
Nice.
And that facility we'll be able to do up to 2 million square feet a month in castellated beam production. We're not doing that now because I don't have the backlog for it, but we can. Yeah. Right now we could do 1 million square feet a month.
On your trajectory, you're going to get there.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But it's a big facility, and so that was the thing too, going in and selling these castellated beams to everybody, and then like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yes, they're starting to give us 200,000, 400,000, 900,000 square feet projects. They're like, we don't want to put you in the joist situation where now you're out over a year. So I was trying to stay one step ahead with that, and at this point, we've been able to, like, 1 month we produced 2 million square feet alone. Or I should install 2 million square feet. We didn't actually fabricate, but we had the lead up to that.
I always try to ask questions thinking about like the audience that's watching or listening, Brandon. One of the things I would say is, great, Brandon, you've now solved our distribution warehousing problem with Joyce. What about the smaller mid-sized projects? Are you in those markets as well?
Yeah, so we're seeing more of those now.
Okay.
We're not seeing a lot of the big bombers out there. So a lot of the jobs that we have contracts for now are really close to that 100,000 square foot building. And we're actually more competitive in that area too, because I think my assumption is these joist guys, they have a certain overhead they have to cover, with their in-house engineering and sales departments and big facilities. So they're not as efficient as a 100,000 square foot building. We're a little more nimble. We're a little more efficient with that. So we're seeing more of that. We see that we can be competitive, but also we're seeing like multi-purpose buildings that have like 140 foot spans or so. Our castellated beams are perfect for that as well. And that are competitive as, so we're seeing other products besides the big warehouse buildings, but also I'm really trying to push the parking garages.
Talk a little bit about that.
We've talked to 3 different customers, and we've given budgets out, and we're hearing about the project alone is about 20% cheaper to go castellated. I guess the savings is just in the precast compared to our system, but also the footings and the foundations for a precast are a lot bigger because we're about about 40% lighter than a precast parking garage going castellated beam. So
what in a castellated deck then? What comprises the deck? Is it still concrete or precast?
No, the deck is going to be a pan poured.
So you're going to pan pour.
Yeah,
okay. Right.
Yep.
So I was just trying to give context for the listener going, oh, well, how do you replace the floor, quote unquote?
Right. Yeah.
But it's just a pan pour.
Pan pour. So my understanding with the precast guys is they want money up front to do the design and engineering on their end, and that takes time. And then once you get going and it's approved, then you go through production. That takes a lot of time, because there's only a handful of guys that can do that. Right. For us, it's just another steel building, really. So you get the engineer record. He's engineering his parking garage with castellated beams. We could fabricate it 4 months, erect it just as fast, if not faster, than a precast parking garage. And now you've got a parking garage way faster and less expensive than a precast. And then also,
what about the ramps? How are they doing the ramps different, or does that go back conventional?
No, they're doing the ramps just like it's a sloped roof kind of,
Okay.
So and you're doing your the ramps in the middle are actually like the brace frames for the parking garage
that makes
too.
sense. Yeah.
So that's the bracing structure in there. And your facade looks a lot better too. It gives an architect a lot more leeway to do something instead of just some,
especially with the municipalities too, as far as like DRB, with their design review boards, they, people want stuff on the outside.
Yep.
I won't mention, by the time you clad a lot of the precast ones, it's like they just spent another couple $1 million putting frou-frou on the outside because of the infrastructure.
Yeah. Yep.
Go back to the deck. I realized I should have asked you this question. With the castellated system, think back to the supply and demand problem we had 2 years ago, and you saw a lot of the warehousing going to, I call it the hybrids, where it's half steel, half wood. Are you seeing that you're able to maintain classic metal B deck, or are you also doing a wood hybrid on top of it as well?
So our very first castellated beam job was a hybrid.
Okay.
So our castellated beams come out with the wood nailer on it, just like you would a joist.
Got it.
They go up just the way. Our first job was not a panelized job, because I built it as a steel guy and didn't really factor that in, how to panelize it just right.
Yep.
But since then, we have a panelized system.
Nice.
We've worked with, in fact, we're working with one of the panelized guys right now, Desert Structures, on a job that they're actually buying the castellated beams from us. So we're kind of like we're a supplier now. And
You're such a whore.
I know, right? Whatever. As long as I can sell it. I sell tons.
Steel whore.
Exactly. I've been called worse.
Take it as a compliment.
Yeah, exactly. We're all about that. We really push the metal deck just because we have more control over that. That's what we know. We don't know wood as well. And I know I can provide a metal deck roof for the same cost as a hybrid roof. So a lot of our customers were like, well, it's a better roof system. Yeah. I'm going to stick with the better roof system if it's not going to cost me more. So we sell more of that. I'd say about 80% of our roofs have been metal and 20% hybrid. And then especially going up north with snow loads, it's all going to be cold storage. We're doing a cold storage facility that's metal. So, but we can do hybrid.
So, since now you're the expert in the castellated arena, or one of the top ones, where's the market going to go with it? What are you excited about? I mean, without giving away all your proprietary secrets.
Yeah.
But like, what is the inner Brandon geek out about at night? Talking to Katie, going, "Honey, I just thought of this."
Oh yeah, there's a couple of things up my sleeve I can't talk about yet, but you'll see. But
well, when the next, social media blitz comes out about you, I've reinvented the wheel. We'll know it. All right, but
you have me back in.
Tease the audience about something you can share.
Well, no, I think it's just the education that is changing it. So it is disrupting it. Am I going to replace joist? No, there's plenty of applications that make more sense for joist. Right. Am I going to be another viable option going forward? Yes. You're going to see, which I have seen, where they're going to show on a building, hey, we want a number for, here's what the joist looks like, and here's what the castellated looks like. We want an option for both.
Right.
You're going to see a lot more of that. But where I really geek out is just expanding into other markets.
Okay.
And really showing these other markets what it is, and being the guy that really shows everybody how this is a better system. And it's just going to get better too, because labor is expensive, and it's getting more and more expensive. My castellated beam is, for the way I developed it, is faster man-hour wise to build a castellated beam over a joist. Even though they're very efficient at what they do. It's amazing, these joist factories, how efficient they are.
Right.
But it takes more man-hours. Well, as labor gets more expensive, they're going to get more expensive. As I get more efficient, we have other things up our sleeve too to make us even more efficient. Yeah. We'll get more competitive. But we're going to be right there with joist pricing. It's just we're a better option.
Back to the actual, castellation process of taking that eye joist and like whacking it and stacking it with the plasma cutter. Is that all done robotically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why and that's the only reason we're competitive.
Right.
Back before automation and a robot, they'd have to do it by hand, which would take
Dear
hours.
God.
And which, where now it takes minutes
Right.
instead of hours. So that's why a lot of people are like, where has this been for the last 40 years? Well, it's been somewhere where it's not efficient, doesn't make sense. But now with, 2020 happening and the demand and the pricing going up there, it opened the market up to try a new product, which, because I was able to charge more to cover anything I forgot or didn't realize and really open it up. And now that, we're more efficient, we're here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
With your increased throughput then, if I go back to the supply chain, have the vendors increased for you, or have you had increased vendors, or both, as far as getting the raw steel?
The raw steel hasn't been an issue at all because we know a few months before, and it's a very common size beam that we use mostly. So it's not going to be an issue at all. Yeah.
No, I maybe let me rephrase that. Have they, because of your success, have they reached out to you going, oh, Brandon, we can give you better pricing, and now that you're doing 4,000% more, and then have there been more vendors kind of coming to you going, hey, Brandon, we want your business? I mean, the obvious answer is yes, but to what magnitude?
Like Nucor, who is one of the biggest, greenest steel companies in the country or world, I've had a few visits from them, and it progressively got, I had the local sales manager, then the regional sales manager, then
and you knew them all anyway.
Yeah, well, some of the big guys I didn't know, and I'm like, why are you here? And like they we need to see who's buying all these beams. And I've got a really good relationship with my steel vendor right now, but the mills are now coming over and saying, hey, we could sell direct to you. So there's a lot of I'm like, who, me, this little guy? They're like, you bought more beams than most people. Or at one point, I think I bought more steel than anybody else in Arizona for a couple months there. Like I said, the 300 or 400 truckloads of steel.
It's crazy.
So it was,
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Blue Wave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Blue Wave to get it done right the first time.
it was.
Again, if you don't mind talking about this, with your success and how you did this, were you able to do it without raising capital, or have you brought in some investors, or did you just go back and leverage all those relationships that when you started?
All relationships. Yeah. I was really fortunate. I was able to tell my
because putting up a new plant in Goodyear and outfitting it with all that stuff, it's not cheap.
Right. Yeah. No, it's I mean, every dollar I make, I reinvest in the company.
Right.
So I have to do that with the growth, but it's all about terms too. So I had these customers, especially starting off, saying, "Hey, I've got the solution, Castellated beam. You're going to get your building a year before you're planning on it, and cheaper, but I'm going to have to spend millions of dollars in just raw material. I'm going to need to be able to invoice you up front, so that when I receive the material, I get paid right away to be able to pay my vendors." Right. And they're all about it. The banks were all about it. Everybody's about it. As long as they could see it and they could hold it,
the
take
lenders,
a picture.
as long as you can prove it.
Right. Yeah. Right. So I was able to. Cash flow wasn't an issue because they were able to pay me when I needed to be paid, and I was upfront with them. They understand. I mean, when you're talking, if you have a $10 million job and let's just say for round numbers, $7 million of it's literally just beams that I have to buy. I can't, as a small guy, absorb $7 million and wait 45 days.
Or more like 90.
Well, yeah. Well, you might wait 45 days to be able to invoice it, then wait another 45 days to be paid for it. Yeah. It just doesn't work that way. I'd be out of business. So again, that's relationship based. And it's a win-win situation for everybody, especially if you're honest.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you, again, because you're synonymous with this and your name is highly recognizable, have you actually had to, or have you had the desire to expand your business development? Like, have you actually developed a team just for that?
Yeah. So Lauren Fisher, who was with Deutsch Architects, is on my team. She heads up my business development, vice president, and she's
and I knew that. I was just giving you a free plug.
Okay, yeah.
I was baiting you into that question.
Yeah, I'm so lucky to have her. She, I reached out to one of her friends, and again, I was having one of those moments where I can't do all this. I need help, even though I love it. I love selling and having relationships with people more than anything else. And I reached out to one of her friends who I met when I was doing business development, and her name's Brooke Taft. She works for Wood Patel, and I had a lot of respect for her. She taught me a lot when I was doing business development on the GC world, because that's all she knew. And just seeing how she worked with clients and people, I'm like, man, I want somebody just like her. So I reached out to her and said, hey, do you have anybody that's like you that's looking for a job or would like to be out there? And she's like, no, not really. Nobody's like me. But then she came back with Lauren. She's like, Lauren has an amazing job. She loves her job. She loves her team. But she might be interested in some kind of new disruptive technology.
Brandon's not disruptive at all.
So I reached out to her, and she was up for her lunch and talked to her about it. And I was really worried about that relationship with Deutsch too, because you know, they have a great reputation, and Dave Calcaterra is an amazing person, and I didn't want to burn a bridge there for her or for I. But after she heard all about it, and I talked to all, like I am now, about just castellated beams and all excited, she got all excited, and she's like, this is something I think I want to do, but let me run it by, my team at Deutsch, and they were happy for her and understood why she wanted it. And she came over and hit the ground running, and her reputation and her contacts she has in the industry has been amazing for us and to help our growth out.
No, that's
a lot of doors.
Kind of, we're not done, but I'm just kind of winding down. This is kind of where I turn it back to you. What have I not asked you, or what would you like to share with the audience, either about you, the vision, leadership, your company, anything? Just
I don't know. You did great. Those are some really good questions.
Oh.
Yeah. No, you touched on a lot.
We can talk about what do you do for fun? Other than work?
What do I do for fun? Well,
you have kids?
Yes, I have two boys, riding dirt bikes. They're getting in the dirt bike age now.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah, I have two boys. Yeah, that Wyatt and Ryer, 9 and 7. So spending time with them. So they're big in soccer now. We love going to Telluride.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I know, right? Are you?
Brandon's the crazy soccer mom. Dad. He's got the stickers all over his minivan.
Yeah, my minivan. Yeah, for sure.
Mine are all older, but I've been
starting fights on the sideline because my kid's, faster than your kid or something.
Put Johnny in, because my Johnny's better than your Johnny.
Yeah.
And then Katie's walking to the end going, I'm not married to him. I'm not married to him.
Hey, you know what? Katie's actually a coach for on my youngest kid's
that's
team.
Good.
She's
better her than you.
She's doing great. They kicked butt this last week. Yeah. But no, I think for fun, it's we're all about the mountains. We go to Telluride a lot.
Oh, good.
And we're like,
do you have a place up there?
Yeah.
Nice.
And we ride mountain bikes all summer long. And then Katie's a big skier, so she loves to ski. And I'm not much of a skier, but now I'm getting into it because my 9 and 7-year-old are getting really good. And they're like, come on, Dad, come on, and let's go one more run. And it's cool skiing with them. So
is she excuse me, a traditionalist, or are you going to let the boys board?
She will let the boys do whatever they want. Okay. She is definitely a traditionalist, but if the boys have a passion for it, she'll that's whatever. But so we do that for fun. We're going to the sand dunes, their first sand dune trip. They're so super excited for it here next month.
Like Glamis or
what? Yeah. Do that, get them into that, because it's where I was raised. But
why not?
It's that stage right now where I've heard from a lot of friends. They're like, the stage goes quick, so soak it up while you can. So we're trying to do that with the boys.
Back to your roots. Do you have any, is there any need, desire? Would you have a plant back in Yuma?
Thought about it, definitely.
To serve SoCal or wherever, or even anyway, even an expansion into Mexico? I'm just throwing this out there.
I'd have a plant anywhere it made sense, and this is growing so fast that, there's nothing that's not off the table, or not on the table. Everything's on the table. It's hard to say. We could be having this discussion in 3 years, and I could have a plant in Yuma and a plant in Salt Lake. I don't know. whatever the market lets me do. But I'm not saying no. We're having fun. We're growing the team, and we'll do whatever the demand lets us do.
So let me ask you the blunt question. How many private equity calls have you turned down to sell your company?
None yet.
Bullshit.
Emails are crazy. Emails are crazy, but I mean, they'll be coming, I hope. Just to know that I have something that's worth them. Not that I have any desire to sell. I mean, everything's for sale, but that's not a plan. I'm not doing this.
You seem like you're having fun.
I am having fun. I mean, this is.
It's like Brandon 2.0.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe it's 3.0. I don't know.
It's Brandon.
It's kind of 3.0.
Is it? Yeah.
Well, as an outsider looking in, it might even be 3 or 4.0, but to you, it might be completely different. It's not to label it or judge it, but it just seems like you're obviously a great entrepreneur. You're obviously very connected in your community. Everyone knows you and the name and what you've done, which is kudos to you, both what you did before and now. But I don't know. To me, again, just the perception is it's inspiring because the more success stories we have like that in our industry, I always tell everyone, and you've heard it probably 100 times on this show, we are the smallest big town in America. Mm-hmm. And it's going to keep growing. Like I was part of a meeting last week, scary statistic. I mean, cool that we will be part of the 6th biggest economies in America, that we're actually going to go ahead of LA and New York.
Wow.
Put that in perspective.
Right.
And Chicago. And so it's like, that's how much we're contributing to the paradigm shift that is the global economy,
right?
With how we're connected to northern Mexico, that no one wants to be in California anymore. I mean, it's just all these
disasters.
All these things, yeah. And we're immune to natural disasters.
We have plenty of water.
Yep.
No matter
we've
what
had that plenty
say.
on the show. Yeah. Well, it's all manageable.
Yeah.
We have all the technology. We just need to use it.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No. It's perfect place, perfect time.
Keep
for
crushing
a lot
it.
of us. Yeah. Having fun doing it.
Any other parting shots or,
I don't know.
Proverbs by Brandon?
No.
Are you going to the game tonight?
Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Wednesday.
I know this show will come out a lot after.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can joke that we recorded this show and then the D-backs won the World Series. But
they look like they could definitely do it.
Well, good. On Wednesday then, make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hey, Brandon, just thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story. All the continued success with Next Level Steel. I hope to see you global, man.
Thanks for having me and reaching out. I mean, this is awesome. This is fun. Have me on anytime.
All right. Wrapping up this episode of Mac and Blue.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Blue Wave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow JJ Levensky on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in every Monday